Hello, everyone. Good morning or afternoon, depending where you are. Welcome. I'm going to get started as we are now at maximum capacity. My name is Nicole Patras. I'm the Beckman Young Investigator Program Officer. Before we get started, a couple of housekeeping rules for you. If you could please put your phone on mute. This way no one hears your background noise. And then when it comes time for Q&A, obviously unmute your phone. That would be great. If you can see in the GoToMeeting box, there is a chat bar. In that chat box, you're welcome to type in your questions as we go along. Toward the end of this presentation, I have some Q&A that I'll go over with you that I receive often. So I'll try to answer the other questions that I haven't already gone over. And you are welcome to follow up with me via email or phone, and my information is on the last slide that you can contact me. So just a reminder, please put your phone on mute. That will be helpful. This is my first time, so be nice. And we'll get started. Oh, and I'm so sorry. I'm recording this. We're going to put it on our website, just so everyone is aware of that. Okay, so I'm sure you've seen this lovely slide now for the last 15 minutes, but the Arnold and Mabel Beckman Foundation is located in Irvine, California, and we support researchers and nonprofit research institutions in making the next generation of breakthroughs in the chemical and life sciences. It was founded in 1977 by Dr. Arnold O. Beckman and Mrs. Mabel Beckman, and we support United States institutions and young scientists whose creative, high-risk, and interdisciplinary research will lead to innovations and new tools and methods for scientific discovery. I've been the program officer for the BYI program for the last 3 years, and it is incredibly rewarding to start this process each year and then to select finalists at the end. We just announced our 2018 awardees on our website if you want to take a look at that to kind of get a feel for the type of science we're looking to fund. All right. So I'm going to go over sort of the eligibility and guidelines of the program. And like I said, toward the end, I have some Q&A that I'll discuss with you. So just in case anyone isn't aware, the Beckman Young Investigators Program looks to fund promising young faculty members in the early stages of their academic careers in the chemical and life sciences. We have this little caveat that we are looking to particularly foster the invention of methods, instruments, and materials that will open up new avenues of research in science. And I'll go into more detail about what we mean when we say young faculty. Okay, so to go over some of the program guidelines, we are looking for truly innovative, high-risk, high-reward proposals for the BYI application. General rule of thumb at the foundation is that if the NIH will fund it, we are not interested. So that's something to keep in mind as you consider submitting your proposal. Proposals should represent a departure from current research rather than an extension or expansion of existing programs and postdoctoral work. And your proposed research should cut across traditional boundaries of scientific disciplines. It's not a necessary item, but it's something that we look for and is encouraged. We're looking for proposals that open up new avenues of research in the chemical and life sciences, and again, particularly fostering new methods, instruments, and materials. Some additional guidelines for you. This program strives to provide funds for promising young faculty members in their career, and again, I'll go over that a little bit more in detail in eligibility. The projects are normally funded for up to 4 years in the amount of $600,000, $150,000 annually, and that's contingent upon demonstrated progress after the second year of the award. As a general guideline, the foundation does not provide for overhead or indirect costs. Moving on to eligibility. Applicants must be within the first 3 years of their tenure track position or equivalent independent research appointment at a U.S. academic or nonprofit institution. The cutoff for the 2019 program is on or after August 15th, 2015. So if you started your tenure track position on or after 8/15/15, you do meet this eligibility. Candidates must be citizens or permanent residents of the United States at time of application, which means that you do need to be permanent resident or citizen by 8/6/20. Government documentation is required to submit a letter of intent. Candidates can apply a maximum of 2 times for the letter of intent. So to clarify, that means if you successfully submitted a letter of intent, that is one of the 2 times. It does not mean that if you submitted a letter of intent but didn't get to full proposal. It's just 2 times submitting letter of intent stage. Candidates may have no more than $225,000 in direct annualized external funding. All funding must be taken into account with the exception of department-wide instrumentation grants, startup funding, and transition grants received as a postdoc. I'll go into that in a little bit more detail as well. Institutions are not limited to the number of applicants who may apply. So this slide breaks down the letter of intent components. It is essentially a 6-part application that consists of a PI profile, which is sort of general questions about the PI themselves, their lab, their institution. We do require scanned copies of your citizenship or permanent resident documentation in the PI profile. It includes a 1,200-word proposal. 12 words do not include figures or references. It also includes a bio sketch. We'll provide a template for that. A research support form, which is also a template form provided, and institutional endorsements from the Chief Academic Officer and Dean. To break a couple of those things down a little bit further, in regards to the citizenship permanent residency documentation, we're looking for the following: either a copy of your U.S. passport or a copy of your birth certificate and driver's license or your permanent residence card. And to further break down the institutional endorsements, these often create some sort of conflict. These are not letters of recommendation. These are simply electronic signatures that are collected and submitted via the online application under the request section of the letter of intent. We are looking for the Chief Academic Officer and Dean to sign, or a similarly authorized signee. These signatures mean that endorsers are agreeing to the following: they've reviewed the letter of intent and associated materials, that all parties agree to the terms of the BYI program, and the institution continues ongoing support levels of the applicant. All right. And before I proceed, please put your phone on mute. We're hearing a little bit of feedback and it's a little bit difficult to continue. All right, so these are some important dates for the program, the 2019 program. We have the due date of the letter of intent as August 6, 2018. That's due at 5 p.m. Pacific. All applications are due online. By early November, we'll notify you if your letter of intent is moving to full proposal stage. And full proposals will be due January 7th, 2019, also 5 p.m. Pacific. We'll notify you in early April if you've been selected to come out for an interview. Interviews will be taking place in Irvine at the Beckman Center, April 24th to 26th, 2019. We strive to announce our awardees in mid-May, and then awardees are invited to attend our symposium, which for 2019 will be held August 1st through 4th. All right. So now I'm going to move on to the frequently asked questions portion. So like I said, I've been program officer here for 3 years, so I went back to some of my notes and I collected some of the questions that I received year after year. I'm sure some of you may have already typed in these questions. I'll go over them here. If you need additional clarification after I've answered them, please feel free to enter that information into the chat box, and I will answer them as best I can. So This first question is in regards to the research support form. So the image that you're looking at is actually snipped from the research support form. And this is the information you'll be completing in order to determine your eligibility in regards to having 150,000, or excuse me, we have a limitation of $225,000 annually. So using this example, as you'll see, I have my start and end date. The total amount of my award is $100,000, but my direct amount is $80,000. So both of those numbers are represented in box number 1. And then breaking that down to fit the program's annual timeline, that's August through July, I've broken that down into the $20,000 boxes, 2, 3, 4, and 5 to just represent the direct amount. So again, we're looking at the direct annualized amount of all of your funding. And I'll continue with that on the next slide. So oftentimes people ask what type of funding needs to be included. We want all of your funding included, with the exception of department-wide instrumentation grants, startup funds, and transition grants. Absolutely every grant needs to be accounted for on this document. If you are a co-PI on a grant, we do want you to include that information using the total overall award amount and then your direct portion for the subsequent boxes 2 through 5. If you have already started a letter of intent, or if you're familiar with the research support form, which is available on the letter of intent, there's a document on page 2 that has a chart, and that chart will actually autofill based on the information you've entered on pages 3 through 5. Okay, moving on. Oftentimes get questions about a collaborator. If your proposal includes a collaborator, can you still submit? The BYI program grants individual awards, and co-PIs are not allowed. However, we do allow scientific collaborations, and we just ask that that is included in your written proposal. Second question, if you are in a non-tenure track position, oftentimes these titles include lecturer, instructor, teaching professor. Am I eligible to apply? The short answer is no. You must be in a tenure track position at time of application, and most common titles for tenure track include associate or assistant professor. I briefly touched on similar titles to tenure track, and we define that using the following. Generally, this rule applies to a non-academic lab, such as a research institute or national lab. These titles differ based on location, but you must perform in a role similar to tenure track position in order to be eligible. If you fall under this category, feel free to reach out to me directly to check on eligibility. General rule, if tenure track is available at your institution, you must be in one of those positions. Moving on, my research is within the confines of chemistry and life sciences, but we propose to use clinical research methods. Am I eligible? No, the foundation does not support clinical research. In regards to the institutional endorsements, oftentimes the dean, chief academic officer is out of the office or can't sign for some reason. You are allowed to have someone else sign in their place as long as they have the signing authority to do so. If you've created a letter of intent already, you'll see that we ask for independent evaluators in the PI portion of the application, and oftentimes want to know what their role is with the application. The independent evaluator information is simply a collection method that the foundation uses to better understand experts in the field. We will not be reaching out to those people. They will not be contacted on your behalf by us. And like I said, this is just something that we use to kind of get a better grasp of the experts in the field. What type of feedback do applicants receive if they are unsuccessful? The foundation does not provide feedback on submitted letters of intent or full proposals. And the review process breaks down into essentially 3 tiers. The first tier being reviewing the letters of intent. We will move forward approximately 100 letters of intent to submit a full proposal. The second tier, the full proposal, Those are reviewed and will invite approximately 16 finalists to attend an in-person interview. And then finally, Tier 3, applicants are interviewed and will award approximately 10 awardees in spring 2019. So at this point, I'm going to turn over to the chat portion. If you have any additional questions, I'll be quickly sorting through them and responding. If you have anything that's very specific, it might be best to just reach out to me. My email and phone number are on the slide that's up right now. So first question, you indicated approximately $150,000 per year. Could that be larger in year one if a significant piece of equipment is required or requested during the first year of funding? Short answer is no. We're giving you those funds to work with each year. You have a little bit more flexibility as the years go on in how you want to space out your funding, but generally, no, you could not basically overspend in any year. So we're going through the chat questions right now, so just bear with us for a moment. Feel free to include more, and I will respond as soon as I can. Okay, so next question. Our university uses a separate 501c3 entity for foundation submissions. That is the entity responsible for managing, stewarding private funding. Can the CEO or COO of our university's nonprofit foundation serve as the authorized signatory for the chief academic officer? The CEO, COO is not considered an academic officer for our university. Yes, that would be fine. I'm curious what that institution is, but yes, that would be fine. All right. Can you elaborate on if the NIH will fund it, we will not? Are you referring to presence, absence of preliminary data, the risk reward, or the topic? The NIH funds research on ALS. Does that mean you will not? What I meant by that comment is generally NIH funding is looking for something very specific, very safe, where we're not looking for something necessarily specific, but we're not looking for something safe. We're looking for something that's really outside the box, cutting across boundaries. You're probably not going to get research support using this proposal anywhere else. So generally, sort of rule of thumb internally, if it looks like an NIH proposal, it's not a BYI proposal. I hope that clarifies. In regards to your question about ALS research, as long as it's not clinical and it meets the other criteria, there's no reason why we would not fund that. My research proposal will develop instrumentation that will be used on a beamline used facility at a national lab. Can I submit a letter of intent that would acknowledge that if I funded, the national lab would support, that if funded, the national lab would support this effort? A national lab, let's see. Okay. So we won't support a proposal from a national lab. So if you're at a university or facility, but your instrumentation development is going to be used at this national lab, that would be fine. I hope I understood that. How many letters of intent do you usually get? This ranges quite, it's pretty varied. Last year we received upwards of 500. Of those 500, only 350 were actually reviewed based on meeting the criteria, eligibility and guideline criteria. So for 2018, we had 350 eligible letters of intent. Okay, moving on. I have noted the technical focus of the grant. Can aims be purely technical or methodological, or should aims be addressing scientific questions? It could be either, or I guess all three of those. Okay. Can you give us some examples of high-risk interdisciplinary projects that are unlikely to be funded by NIH? How can investigators best demonstrate to your review team that federal agencies are unlikely to fund the project? We're not asking you to prove that your funding, you won't get NIH funding. Like I said, it's just a general rule of thumb at the foundation. That's something we go by. In regards to examples, I would point you in the direction of our website. If you go to our BYI awardees, you'll see all of our recent awardees up until 2018, what we funded, and then there's a link to their lab as well, so that you can kind of get a better idea of what we're looking for. Okay. If the current lab is above the $225,000 limit only during August 18 to July 19, before the BYI program starts, would the applicant still be eligible? No. You do need to fall within the guidelines of the 4 years. So your funding must be at the $225,000 limit each of those subsequent years. Oh, I did, I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
Oh. For pre-submission, does program manager help to decide if a project is suitable for BYI programs? So that would be best suited at your own institution. This is where I would kind of say, turn it around to the OSP office, the Sponsored Projects office, and ask them. They're generally in contact with me, they understand the program. It might be better at that point to get their opinion on the matter. Again, I highly recommend that you go through our website and see the type of funding that we've provided to see if that sort of falls in line with what you're looking to bring to the table. Okay, next question. How broadly do you define chemical sciences? Can the department be physics, engineering, etc., as long as the focus on the research is chemical in nature? Yes, that sums it up perfectly. As long as the focus is chemical in nature, absolutely. Engineers, physicists, welcome to apply. Can my department chair sign my reference letter, or does it have to be the dean of the school? So just again, a clarification, because I know this is a little confusing. The endorsements are not letters. They are just electronic signatures that are sent and submitted via our online application. And then I actually already forgot what the question was because I was so focused on that. Can the department chair sign that? Yes, that's fine. As long as they have the authority to do so, that is fine. Okay, moving on. A number of newer faculty align their research and cross-cutting research. How does Beckman feel about researchers in the space of biogeochemistry as it pertains to chemical and life sciences? I think I probably already answered that one. As long as it has some sort of chemical and life science in nature to it, then they're welcome to apply. What amount of preliminary data do you expect in the application? If I am just starting my faculty position this fall and thus have little preliminary data, would you suggest that I apply this year or wait to have preliminary data? Thank you. You don't have to have any preliminary data for the letter of intent. In regards to suggesting if you should wait, assuming that you just started your tenure, you'd be eligible for 3 years. So if you want to wait a year and then apply your last 2 eligible years, that might be a good tactic, but you don't need to have preliminary data. Chemical and life sciences can be broadly defined. Is this the interpretation? I'm sorry, is the interpretation the same in this regard? Yes. How many full proposals do you usually invite and how many do you eventually fund? We invite 100 people to submit a full proposal. We invite 16 of those 100 to attend the interview, and we generally will award 10. All right. You say that you do not support research at national lab. Does this mean that you do not consider an application from NIH researcher who is developing new technologies? That is correct. The foundation does not support national laboratories. I saw that you asked for our startup funds on the form. Do you tend to fund applicants who were less generously funded by the university, or how is that taken into account? That's funny, this has come up quite a bit this year. No, we don't take that into account. We are just looking at the applicant in a really holistic manner. We want to know how much money they're provided and their startup funds. We want to know how much money they currently have in their research. This is just information we're looking as a whole. We're providing a significant amount of funding, not only for the proposal, but for the person. So that's why we ask for this information. Are the reviewers discipline specific? In other words, are biology proposals evaluated only by biologists, etc., or should proposals be written for a general scientific audience? Who is this person? Andrew, fantastic question. Please write your proposals to a general scientific audience. However, we do have reviewer-specific proposal panelists. So, for example, you might be a microbiologist. Your panel might have a microbiologist, but it might not. It could have anyone in the fields of biology. So they're experts in the field. However, they might not be experts in your field. So please write to a general scientific audience. And great question, Andrew. All right. Similar question to Andrew's. What does the review process entail? Is there an ongoing panel, and are there specific criteria? If so, can you share these specific criteria? Am I understanding this correctly, that you want to know the criteria of the panel? The review question? So we have a process like I went over. It's a 3-tier review process. We select our reviewers. They're given the guidelines the same as I went over with you. They look at the eligibility and criteria, and then they're just looking at a proposal and taking all the information that's provided, and then basically it's just a very long review process in which everything gets whittled down from there. So if you pique their interest in the letter of intent, you're invited to submit a full proposal, and then we'll get a better understanding of what your proposal is. At that point, it becomes a 5-page proposal instead of the 1,200 words. So really getting a better understanding of what you're looking to submit at that point. I think that's my last question. Are there any last-minute questions? If you want to type them into the chat box now, feel free. If not, or like I said, if you have a very specific question, feel free to reach out to me via email or phone. I'm happy to answer any questions at any time. And it's a lot easier to do it now before the application is due. Just a general rule of thumb, if you are looking to submit, please try your best to submit. The online application sometimes gets a little flooded on the day of, and I just would hate to see your application not be submitted for technical reasons. And then the last thing I wanted to share is please use the resources provided to you at your institution. Your Office of Sponsored Projects or programs are there to help you, and they generally are familiar with these terms. If not, they're welcome to contact me. They're a great first resource for you, and after that, if there's additional questions, I'm happy to help. So I think that's it. Thank you all so much for your time. Thanks for your patience, and I look forward to receiving your application. Have a nice day. Bye.